bus was escalating. Pregnant ladies and little kids better get the hell out of the way, because I am running. I'm like Forrest Gump, dude. I am running. So, the Titanic was the biggest ship on the ocean, but that didn't mean it was unsinkable. Okay. All right. I want you each to use ombudsman in a sentence next week.
I got one for you.
My name is Kevin, the official ombudsman of the Just Press Play podcast.
You like apples?
Here we are with another edition of the Just Press Play podcast. We got Pops and LJ here with us. And guys, it's March, baby. March Madness is right around the corner.
It doesn't feel like it outside, though. I can tell you that for damn sure.
It's not spring yet.
No, it was snowing up here in northwest Arkansas and cold, and it's cold in Texarkana. I don't know, LJ. It might be cold up there in Chicago. I'm not sure.
No, it's actually it's a nice 72 up here. So we hit the beach this morning. It was nice.
Yeah, I bet you did.
If you did, I bet there's what is it that George got that time? Shrinkage. There'd be shrinkage if you jumped in the if you jumped in the Great Lakes right now. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Along with frostbite and a missing toe.
Kevin, you sound like that's bad. That was on national TV at like 7:00 in the evening.
No. We're already started. I mean, we've only been in for a few minutes and we're already
Kevin's
into
been
shrinkage.
watching the Bobbitt documentary, so he's got different mindsets going on.
Yeah, listeners.
That was supposed to stay pre-record. That wasn't supposed to get into the episode.
Your illustrious host, listeners, just figured out who John Bobbitt was. I don't know exactly what led him to that, but we'll leave that to the imagination.
Oh,
well, a coworker just told me, hey, you should check out this documentary, and I had no idea what I was getting myself into. And he knew that I had no idea what I was getting into, and then, whoo, it is something else. Anyway.
So did you cut it short?
It's probably good. Good Lord.
Oh, man, he is hot. He is on fire.
Straight butter.
Yeah.
Well, that gets us perfectly into how we like to start off a lot of the episodes now, and that's the best and worst. I thought the Bobbitt was almost going to be one of my worst options for this week, and I thought we didn't want to bring that up in the podcast, but lo and behold, here we are. So, Pops, I'll just start off with you. What's your best of the week?
Well, do you remember what my worst was last week? Last week we talked about it.
Probably couldn't golf. I don't really
remember.
No,
it was the fact that it's Peter Frampton's last concert.
Oh yeah.
So you know what the best is this week? I'm freaking going to see Peter Frampton.
What? Where?
Red Rocks. Yes.
Oh, even better.
I'm going with Joe D. Nichols. That's going to be on our podcast sometime. Oh, Joe D. And his beautiful wife and my beautiful wife. And we're going to go to Red Rocks. We're going to see Peter freaking Frampton.
Yes. Well, that is pretty cool. That is pretty sweet.
Yeah. Pretty pumped about that.
Where's Red Rock?
Red Rocks is up by Denver.
Oh, man.
Remember
that?
Oh,
wow. So y'all are going to have
the country.
That is probably the most beautiful outdoor venue I've ever. Well, it's not probably. It's the prettiest outdoor venue I've been to.
It might be the prettiest one in the entire country.
Could
be.
I
don't think you'd get a lot of debate if you said that.
And you know, it's what it's famous for, because as you're watching a concert, just over the top of the stage is the birthplace. I mean, I think it says it at Red Rocks, the birthplace of your brother and your sister, Kevin.
Really?
Yeah, you can see the birthplace of your brother and sister. Denver's right in the background.
Man, I can't wait till I have the wherewithal on my bank account to just, you know what, I want to go see Peter Frampton at Red Rocks. You know, it's his farewell tour.
Yeah.
One day when this podcast pays off, we'll be there.
Or you're 53, whatever comes first.
Well, my best of the week is going to go out to Tony Harris, who y'all may have heard of. She has become the first woman to ever receive a non-kicker football scholarship.
Hey.
She is. It was a pretty cool thing. I saw this earlier this week. She's from Detroit. She's played free safety at East Los Angeles Community College for the past 2 years. And this past week, she signed a letter of intent to play football at Central Methodist University, which is a D1 school in Fayette, Missouri. So it's just,
hell yeah.
pretty
Hell
cool.
yeah.
I mean,
Is she playing free safety? Is that the plan?
She's going to play safety. And I mean, I was watching a little bit of highlights. I mean, clearly she at times looks a little smaller, and, I could see why that would be tough, but I was listening to her talk, and I think she was on the Good Morning America show earlier this past week, and she was really cool. Like, someone asked her, one of the people on there were like, what's it like knowing that a bunch of young girls like are looking up to you and want to be like you? And she was like, be like me. Everybody, go be better than me. Go get to a better school than I've got to. Go to USC. Go somewhere. It was just cool.
That is the thing, though, is I feel for her. The pressure she's going to be under to succeed is going to be so huge, because if she doesn't work out, then people will use that as a, look, this is why we don't let women play football, So there's got to be a lot of pressure on her, but I'm rooting for her. That sounds awesome.
Well, me too. Wow.
Yeah,
it's a
now
physical
joins,
sport, so.
Well, that's the only other woman to get a college scholarship to play football was Becca Longo, and she was a kicker at Adams State. So this is the first time someone's playing at a full-on contact position. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes forward. But either way, just shout out to her for breaking barriers. I mean, it was cool. Yeah. Cool story.
Very cool. Very cool.
LJ, what do you got for your best this week?
Have you guys heard of the show The Masked Singer?
Oh, that was almost I think I know where you're going. This is almost my best.
Well, I'm not gonna say what it is. So there's a show called The Masked Singer, where the premise is. Have you heard of it, Doug?
Yeah, I've heard of it.
For listeners, anyway. So for those that don't know what The Masked Singer is, I would suggest that you check it out. It's on like Hulu. It's a Fox show where the premise is they bring people in. They're all celebrities and they're all wearing masks and doing performances, and then
and some are wearing ridiculous costumes, by the way.
Oh yeah, no, it's crazy. And every episode they take off the mask and you find out who you've been listening to, and it's pretty cool because it gives some people a chance to like show that they have other talents than what they had. So I don't want to like spoil anything if you haven't watched it, but the winner this week just really like made me feel good, and also like Hannah called it beforehand, and the other thing is. I've been on this guy for some time, so as what he wanted to show, so I just felt pretty cool about it.
Well, I feel like we can maybe give it away because I didn't see it by watching the show. It was all over Twitter afterward, and it was kind of blown up.
Well, if you want to, we can drop it.
Drop it.
So the winner of this whole competition was T-Pain, and he did it obviously sans auto-tune, so people didn't know who he was the whole time. I mean, the cool thing about this show is I spent a lot of the time thinking this guy might be Ricky Williams. That's how like messed up they can get you on trying to figure out who everybody is. But yeah, he was just a fantastic singer and wanted to prove that he could do it without autotune, and just absolutely killed it, and it just made my day.
The clip, the one that I saw, Dad, and we'll put this in the show notes, is he was singing "Stay With Me" by Sam Smith, and my God.
Oh my God, he's amazing.
It was amazing. Sam Smith is really good, and T-Pain's version, I'm not saying it was better, but it was really, really, really good. And
it might have been. And
it might have been better. It was fantastic. And if you've watched his Tiny Desk concert, you probably remember that. I mean, he will shock you with what he does. It just, like LJ said, I didn't know what this show was. I'm like, who the hell is this behind this mask? He pops it off.
Well, and that's the other thing is I kind of wanted to bring up that I think that's the one that got me into Tiny Desk concerts too, was watching T-Pain just blow me away. Because at that time, I mean, I've always thought the man could sing, and he used auto-tune as a tool instead of a crutch like a lot of people use it.
Right.
But then when I heard him do it without the auto-tune, I was just blown away with his Tiny Desk concert. And then this was just another, like, the whole world got to see this instead of just, a relatively large YouTube audience. So it was pretty cool.
He was talking to Ellen afterward, like a couple of days later. He was on the Ellen DeGeneres show, and he said the only thing he didn't calculate in with that big old goofy costume was how hot that sucker was going to be. He said he was burning up the whole time.
I bet.
Apparently, he was saying that he thought he was gonna, it would be funny and be silly, and he'd probably embarrass himself. So he was like, if I'm gonna do it, I might as well go all out. So that's why I got that ridiculous costume. And he's like, and it was all supposed to be planned where there was a fan inside of there, and it would keep me cool and it wouldn't be hot. And since he did so well, he was in the costume for a while, and then the fan wouldn't work because the microphone was picking up the fan noise. So he was just sitting there sweating his butt off. It was hilarious.
Oh man. Well, and he was another one. One of the things that happened a lot with, especially like the last three people, they were all really talented singers and performers. And so one of the things you notice is once they take off the mask, they're instantly so much better because they sing a little bit after they take off the mask or whatever, and to kind of show, this was me. And they're all so much better. I mean, I guess I'll spoil another. Gladys Knight made it to second place, I believe, and she was just, she was great with the bee costume she was wearing. But then she popped that thing off, and I just was ready to cry hearing her sing. Like, she was just that. Wow. Oh my God, she's so good. But well,
I gotta imagine that does affect your singing. I mean, if you have a huge costume on and mask and all this stuff, I mean,
Well, and she was talking a lot about connecting with the audience, which is what the best performers in the world do, right? They find a way to connect to everybody in the room. That's what Dad always talks about, that Prince concert he went to, where it was like 200 people in there or something like that, and how he was able to be a big part of that room and not just, he was like sharing a moment with everybody.
When he was doing his acoustic moment, it was so cool.
And you could tell that that's like the difference, like having all that on keeps you from being able to do that. Like then you're just showing off that you're technically talented, but once you take it off, you can really, I don't know.
Can I bring up a singer or an artist that y'all might check out? Maybe you know about him. Have you ever heard of Puddle's Pity Party? The big 6'8" clown. He dresses up as a clown.
Oh,
but
I think Benji told me about this.
He is an amazing singer. If you ever do Puddle's Pity Party on like Pandora, just do his radio station. It's amazing. It's really good.
He does like covers,
Phil
right?
Carter turned me on. Yeah, he does mostly covers, but I mean, he has a voice that is second to none. And he might have been on America's Got Talent one time or something. I saw him on one of those type shows, but check him out. He's a really incredible singer.
Will do. I bet a couple songs find their way onto our playlist if the man behind it.
If he'll get busy. Okay.
All right, Dad. Let's go on to let's go down to the worst of the week. So I'll start off with you again. Do you have anything for your worst of the week?
Well, a real quick one is, and we talked about it briefly, cloudy, cold, rainy weather. I need some freaking sunshine in my life. I need some sunshine in my life. The other thing, though, and this is, a little bit not a big deal, but did you see Mark Zuckerberg? They had a daughter, and did you see what they named their daughter?
No, I didn't. What?
Max. They named their daughter Max. Now, I don't know if maybe that's short for Maxine, and maybe I don't know, but I just saw this because, apparently he has sworn during Max's lifetime that he and his wife, I can't recall her name, are going to give 99% of their shares of Facebook to philanthropic reasons or causes. So that was pretty cool. But I just thought they had a baby little girl and named her Max. Hey, my name's Lifford, so I mean, I know I don't have a lot of
We
room.
can't talk about names at all on this show.
Right. But I just thought that was peculiar.
Did they actually have a child, or did they build one? Because isn't he robotic? He's not like a real human, is he?
Well, he's a lizard in a human costume. So it was in an egg.
Okay, that makes more sense. I just didn't think they actually had a human birth, since they're not actually humans.
Maybe Max hatched. I don't know. So.
All right. Well, for my worst of the week, I have, you may have heard of this guy. This happened over this past week. As you remember, actually 2 years ago, I came on after the Super Bowl and told you how I lost my ass, and, between the squares and different bets, I lost a bunch of money. Well, apparently it can be worse, because a man in New York, or in the New York area, faked his own kidnapping over the past week to avoid paying $50,000 in Super Bowl bets. So naturally, I had to click on it. I was like, wait, what? So 60-year-old Robert Brandel was found tied up in his pickup truck last Monday. He told police that two men involved in some Super Bowl squares pool took $16,000 from him before driving around with him for 2 whole days, and then left him tied up in the back of his truck.
Oh my God.
Police later found out, this is where it gets good. Police later found out that Brandel entered a bunch of fake names into a $50,000 square pool for the Super Bowl, assuming that, and he wasn't going to put the money. He just assumed if he won, he wouldn't, even though he didn't put a lot of money, he would get everyone else's money. They wouldn't know because he won all the money. Well,
sure.
What happened was, if you remember, what had happened is the score was not your typical 7 and zeros and stuff like that. They were every single quarter ended. It was 3-0, 3-3, 13-3. I mean, it was
Right.
only threes that won. And apparently our boy Brindle didn't have threes. And so he was out $50,000. So, of course, what do you do when you've just lost a bunch of money in the Super Bowl? I just fake a kidnapping.
Fake
and
a
try to make
kidnapping.
this work.
Of course, yeah.
So now the 60-year-old man not only is in the hole for $50K, but he's also being charged with fraud and falsely reporting an incident. So it's just
Oh my God.
it's been a rough go for my man. What was his name? Robert Brandel.
Yeah, I was wondering if his last
No
name was
kidding.
Smollett or something like that.
Yeah, no, that's
Oh my God.
Maybe he was Jussie's or whatever the kid's name is, dad or something.
I wonder if maybe
Good Lord.
he saw that. No, because that kind of happened after. Maybe he inspired Jussie
yeah.
Smollett. Maybe he's the one that inspired it. I don't know,
Maybe.
but I just can't believe. I can't believe the guy wrote. Like, I'm just trying to put this into your head. Like, we've all probably lost bets and regretted, but he thought, here's what I'll do. I'll tie myself up, put myself in the back of my truck. And he did this it was like New York, Buffalo area. So I bet it was freezing cold. He was found laying in his truck after like 2 hours. And he did this 2 days after he lost all the money. So I don't know why, like his story of where the two guys rode around with him for 2 days in his truck, it didn't really add up. It just was, the whole thing was just hilarious to me. And the guy just, every time now I know if I ever have a bad betting experience, it could be worse. I'll just know it. It could be worse. I could be Stuart Brandel or Robert Brandel. So, LJ, what do you got for your worst this week?
Well, I'm not exactly sure that this happened this week, but it's a soccer thing, so I'm not exactly totally up to date about it. I just heard about it through a different podcast. But this guy, okay, so we're in the championship seasons in soccer, where they're playing for, all the big cups and all the big stadiums, and a couple of, I think it was this last weekend, Chelsea played Manchester City in Wembley. Do those names mean anything to you guys? Those are like the big names.
Yeah, I know you're talking about. Tony's
English
Uncle
soccer.
Tony's probably rolling his eyes somewhere right now. But
Oh, he's loving it. He's thinking about ankle rolls and, okay. So there's this goalkeeper. So it was a close game and, they were tied towards the end. And then, somebody got hurt, and so they had a chance to kind of check their strategy. And so what Chelsea wanted to do was they wanted to put in their goalkeeper who specializes in shootouts, because this game was likely to end in a shootout. And so they went to go pull the guy. His name is Kepa Balaga. I'm not exactly sure how you say his name, but the Chelsea goalkeeper, he was supposed to get pulled out of the game so they could put in the specialist. And he refused to do so. Like, they had put up the signs that said, like, send this guy out, pull this guy in, and everything. The coach had made the call, and he just refused to leave the game. So they left him in the game until the clock expired. And then once it went into shootout, they had to keep him in the game for the shootout.
Well,
so,
and you're
isn't that
right.
the most absurd thing ever?
This did happen. You're right. This happened last week, and I saw just a little bit of it. But
I did too. I saw it, but
isn't the other guy that they were trying to bring in like a specialist for this, like for shootout or like the
right.
And
That's
then,
exactly what he is. Yeah, he's on the team for this situation. They're in the biggest game of the year. I mean, they're in the Super Bowl. I mean, imagine you're in the Super Bowl and you've got like a goal line running back and outside of the tackles running back, and you got to get 1 yard, and they won't let Marshawn Lynch come in the game for the Super Bowl. Like, it's absurd that this guy would be allowed to do this. Like, for one, like, I would think security would carry him off the field.
I'm just imagining like back in '96, Michael Jordan, the Bulls are down by 1 and MJ wants to come in for the last shot. And Steve Kerr's like, nah, you're good.
No.
You're good. I'm staying in.
out. But even worse is it's like, it's a guy that's like, it's like a big man trying to say, no, you're not going to be able to shoot this three.
So it's like Will Purdue. It's like Will Purdue saying,
right.
No,
right.
Michael.
He's not like unable,
got
but like
this.
this isn't his job. Yeah. And he ended up, this guy, so the only recourse that the coach really had, because like he legally like couldn't force him off the field. Like, so all he could do was during the shootout, he could have put like one of his like forwards or midfielders or defenders or something like that in the goal for the shootout instead of a goalie. So he could have just had a regular player, but he didn't do that. He let the goalie that forced his way to stay on the field do the goalkeeping, and they ended up losing the shootout by him missing a relatively easy goal. So yeah.
Why did he refuse to come off? What was he just?
Well, They're saying now that it's a misunderstanding. It's hard to always parse through what happens in sports in people's minds, obviously.
Yeah.
So, maybe I think what happened is I think this is the guy. He was the one that kind of like pulled a cramp or something like that, and the coach was trying to pull him out, and then he was trying to indicate to the coach, no, this cramp's not that bad. I'm just trying to, slow down the clock or whatever. I'm milking it a little bit, leave me in the game. And then the coach was like, well, I've already made my decision, get the hell off the field. But by then they had both kind of entrenched in like, no, I'm good. And then I do know that the coach, or I'm pretty sure that Chelsea's coach is English speaking and this guy's first language is Spanish. So there might have been some sort of
communication
there too.
problem.
But but it's absurd. It's just, I'm
reading like apparently everyone in the locker room like likes him and they say he's a good guy and like he's not like a known like it's not like T.O. in the locker room where he's kind of a headache. He's supposed to be he's a 24-year-old good kid and just wasn't coming off the field.
He got paid a ton of money to be there too. Like he's not like some scrub that's just like he happened to be the goalie today. Like he's getting paid 71 million pounds. So
I did see that he got
he was worth something.
He's getting fined a week's pay for refusing to leave the pitch, is what their manager said. So
I would if I was like the ownership of that team, you either have to fire the coach or the goalie. I think at that point, like someone has got to be the boss here, and if they're not listening to the coach, then like one of them's got to go.
Yeah,
I think you have to.
Yeah, like
that's a fair
so
point.
one of the quotes is he said, although there was a misunderstanding on the reflection, I made a big mistake on how I handled the situation. And LJ, you might be right. It could have been two different languages, and there could have been a mistake, but if you're the coach of a team, this isn't like little bitty Fort Smith soccer team. This is a big freaking deal. You got to figure out how to get this communication across. I mean, it just doesn't happen. You can't have a miscommunication at that juncture. That is wild. I knew I'd heard a little bit of it. I didn't hear the names or the teams. I just heard that some soccer player would not come off the field. So I'm glad.
Well, and it's the championship, and it's in front of 86,000 fans there live, and it's in front of like probably 1 million people on TV. Like it's absurd. I can't imagine how. They surely don't even have a rule for that because that won't happen.
It sounds like something that would happen to the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
It really does. Ezekiel Elliott's like, no, Coach Garrett, I'm good, or whatever. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, interesting you bring up the Cowboys. Speaking of the Cowboys, they now have a new player joining back. Well, he's not really new. It's an old player rejoining the locker room as Jason Witten decides to unretire. I don't really know which one. Is he unretiring to come to the NFL or is he retiring from broadcast? I don't know which one he's doing, but he's leaving the booth up Monday Night Football and coming back to the Dallas Cowboys. So I just got to go first off to LJ, thoughts.
My first thought is we won't have to worry about if he's lost a step because he lost all his steps like 4 years ago. So he's not going to be the blur out there or anything like that. But I don't know. I'm kind of glad he's out of the booth. I don't want to see him get hit too hard, but I know he'll take it. It feels like his brain's a little addled already, and so I'm a little nervous about him. But
yeah, I think we really need to start speed up the CTE study and process maybe for Witten. But I'm kind of with you. I'm glad he's not in the booth. I love Jason Witten as a player. He was a great Cowboy for a long time, but he was just not good. He was not good in the Monday Night Football booth, and so I'm not upset that he's leaving there. But I don't know about. He was losing a step 3 years ago, and then he took a year off, and now he's coming back. That man, it was looking hard to run. I'm already forced to watch Dirk run during NBA season, and that hurts my knees just to see my man go around the court.
Light at the end of the tunnel's there, and so now you got to wait till football season where it's not gone yet. So,
well, my first thought was he's a Hall of Fame tight end. He's not a Hall of Fame analyst, so there's just no doubt.
He's doing what he's good at. That's
he's
for
doing
sure.
what he's good at. You talk about he couldn't. I mean, he runs better than Dirk. I mean,
yes,
so
he does.
do I. I mean, so does a toddler.
It's been a bit since I've seen the man run, but
well, true, but he never was a blaze, and he gets open. I mean, I think the biggest thing, and you're probably leading towards this, but they got a lot of young tight ends on that roster that Jason Witten will provide invaluable resources to, and he's probably a coach in waiting.
Well, that's what it almost seems like. He's going to be like a player coach kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
He needs to get Gronk's number to try to get a hold of his brace guy because we'll see what happens. But
So Jason Witten released a statement afterward and said, "The fire inside of me to compete and play this game is just burning too strong. This team has a great group of rising young stars, and I want to help them make a run at the championship. This was completely my decision, and I'm very comfortable with it." Now, that last part sounds like when you've been kidnapped and they're telling you to make it sound normal. That's like what you tell you to say. So I was a little perplexed there.
And did he go, "Oh, yeah, and have you heard me in the booth?" That's what he should have said. I heard a tape of me in the booth and decided, oh, God, I better do something else.
So, actually, I was talking to Mom about this earlier this week, and she brought up an interesting point. And then I went, as soon as she said she had read it in an article or something, but then once I started thinking about it, it was so true. But, like, it's interesting to see the two ways Jason Witten and Tony Romo's career and post-career kind of went, where Romo was the always criticized, always the guy on First Take they were talking about. He was the reason the Cowboys lost, if they lost and stuff like that. And Witten was never criticized throughout his whole career. He was always praised as a great tight end, a great leader, tough guy. I mean, there was just, you never heard a bad word about Witten, except for maybe that he was getting a little slower in his older age, but still people loved him. And then they both went on to do announcing, and Romo is completely switched. Everyone loves Romo. He can do no wrong. And Witten couldn't do anything right. I mean, he just,
That's very accurate. And the other thing is, I feel like if Romo said that he was going to come back and play football, then I think I'd be pretty excited to see where he lands. Like, I feel like I'd be ready to watch that, whereas Witten, I'm a little trepidatious. So, they totally flopped.
And I think it probably is tough. I think Witten kind of showed us that a lot of these guys that are really good at up in the booth and calling games, it's just not as easy as it looks. Like, it's kind of hard to sit there and be recorded for the whole game and not say something that sounds stupid.
Honestly, it's fantastic. Like, it really does make it shows you how hard Bob Costas works and how Al Michaels works. Like, that's such a tough job.
But I bet it was tough for Witten as a guy who just, like, Romo's one of those, like we talked about, he's received a lot of criticism in his career. So even when people, didn't like him predicting plays or something at the top, he's so used to hearing people bash him and talk crap about him. He's just going to be him. Where Witten, on the other hand, is not used to.
Has never really heard criticism.
Yeah, he's not used to every Tuesday morning when he pulls up his computer, it's just a million articles. Like, it almost got like, at one point it was getting kind of harsh. Like, it wasn't just like making fun at Jason Witten. It was people like hating Jason Witten. And that, for someone who hasn't dealt with it, that's probably really tough. I've never obviously dealt with anything like that. And I would think that does change things. And it almost seems like he's coming back to the field more so to get away from the booth as a reason to get out of the booth, maybe. It was interesting. I wanted to ask you guys, what do we think? Who do you want to replace Jason Witten in the Monday Night Football?
Is there any question? I mean, I want Tony Romo for Monday night. That way I know I'm going to hear him every week. That's what I want.
Well, Tony Romo still has a year left on his CBS deal, and he'll be a free agent, which I would think everybody they're going to, the bidding war is going to be out for Tony Romo when his contract goes up. I would like him in the Monday Night Football booth. Another guy I was interested, he's got a year left on his contract too. But do y'all ever watch Good Morning Football on NFL Network? Well, Nate Burleson's on there, and he's called a few Thursday games. Nate Burleson does a really good job. I think he could be kind of fun in the booth. And then there's
Nate Burleson, a Steeler. Is that right?
No,
he was a Viking and a Lion.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
right,
receiver.
Right. Okay.
But he wasn't, he was a third receiver, wasn't he? Probably at best.
He was always
second, I think, but
second, third. Yeah, he was always good, but not just great. He played alongside
But always liked him. He played hard. He was I like Nate Burleson, and I'm like you, Kevin. He's good in the booth. You probably heard him, Kevin. LJ somewhere. Because you said he's called a couple of games. You said right.
He's called a few games, and he does like the pregame stuff with CBS. So you've probably seen him doing stuff, but I think he's pretty good. And then the other big name that's popped up, and it was the one they tried to get really hard last year, I think, before they got Witten, but Peyton Manning's name is coming back up. Yeah. I think he could be interesting in the booth, but I don't know why Peyton Manning's interested in working. That dude's just getting paid a ton of money just to be Peyton Manning right now. He just does a commercial here and there and does those little detail things.
I don't know if you've ever not worked for a good amount of time though. I'd want to work. You know what I mean? Like if I were Peyton, I'd be looking for something probably right now.
Well, what's interesting though with this whole Witten stuff is maybe Peyton Manning and all these guys take a step back and go, maybe I want to really make sure I'm good at this before I go on Monday Night freaking Football
Right.
We just don't know. And that's the thing with Witten that I didn't understand is he never really took his reps. Like you got to call the game, call the crappy college game and the random Sunday games that get kind of hidden with Red Zone Channel before you go out and call Monday Night Football where the whole world's listening to you.
Well, didn't Romo allegedly do like 6 games off the air with just with him and another guy?
Yeah, and apparently they did stuff with Witten too. Like they practice off the air, but I just think you gotta have some live runs. You gotta really get out there and do it. Like I've heard Schlereth calling some games and he's decent. Mark Schlereth stink, but before he started calling NFL games, he was calling the random Thursday college football game. So I just think you got to get some reps before you go out there in front of the whole world, or you're gonna.
Well, and think about it. Jason Witten has never been a very loquacious guy. I mean, he's not. And Romo was. He had that personality. Peyton Manning, his personality is amazing. I think every commercial, maybe they make him look fantastic, but his commercials are fantastic because he looks like he has so much personality. I think he would do good. Witten is a guy that, I mean, I played football years ago, but he was one of those guys that he's there every week. He's a pillar of the locker room, no doubt, but he's just not a very gregarious, humorous, fun kind of guy.
Yeah.
So you could see this happening to Jason Witten, I think is what I guess I'm getting at.
Yeah.
I think Peyton Manning will be good. I do think. I mean, he probably needs to call a game or two, but I think Peyton Manning would be great.
I would think so. The only thing I would suggest, or if you've watched any of those details with Peyton Manning, I've never watched a full episode, but it's the thing he does on ESPN Plus, and I've seen the snips they'll put on on ESPN on SportsCenter or something. He sounds very dull. It's just him talk, but it's also him basically like you're watching film with him. It's not him trying to call a game. So we'll see how it goes. I do think I would be interested in Peyton Manning. A couple other, I was just looking at odds in Vegas actually of who will replace him. A couple other names they had on the list. They had Louis Riddick on the list. I really like Louis Riddick. I think he does.
I like Riddick.
A great job. Greg Olson's really high on the list. He may or may not be retiring. Apparently, a lot of TV like of all the different companies want him. Kurt Warner was there. He's been doing radio for Monday Night Football. Then they had Hasselbeck, and then I found some of these wild, the odds get really high for these people, but there's Tim Tebow was on there at plus 3,000. Pat McAfee was on there at plus 5,000. And then they put, I don't know if they did this just for fun. They threw John Madden on there plus 10,000.
Yeah, there's no way. But I could see Pat McAfee doing a pretty good job at it, actually.
Maybe. He's wild. He's wild. And I don't know if ESPN has the gumption to throw him on Monday Night Football, but he's a fun dude.
Just get him a really good babysitter. I mean, honestly, if you get him a really good babysitter, I think he'd be great. I mean, he's got a goofy sense of humor, but he's also really smart, and he's got an insight that nobody ever thinks about special teams, but the real football nerds like to pretend they do, so he could bring some insight there, and I don't know. I think that might work out pretty well.
I like Pat McAfee. He's called a few games, and he's one of those guys we talked about. He's taken a few, done some reps. He's called a few games that you probably didn't notice, some college games, and then some Sunday games. So it'll be. I'll be interested to see what they do. It'll be fun to see. I wanted to get your guys' take. So the combine also is going on in the NFL this past week, and unfortunately, it's still a possibility. We're trying to get a hold of one of those Wonderlic tests. We're trying to take for here at the JPP. We're trying to take a test to see how smart or dumb we are here at the JPP pod. But we'll have to wait on that. But I wanted to ask you guys. Yeah. Do you think is the combine blown out of proportion?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I don't know that it's blown out. I mean, what it is just it's what looking at them in underwear and getting their measurables. I mean, it's just to see how athletic you are, basically, and that's a good thing. I don't know that it's
but
the word you said. Go ahead.
The only thing, Kyler Murray was the big one. His measurements were huge. It was a big deal, and he came in at
1 inch taller.
Yeah, he came in at 5'10", and it was like, oh, okay, he's 5'10", because no quarterback's ever been 5'9" and make it. Russell Wilson has been 5'10", or they had we've had 5'10" guys, but we've never had a 5'9". And then I saw they want to weigh them and get their measurements and how much they weigh. And I get that, but it's not about what they weigh right now in middle off season. It's what did he weigh? Yeah, I'd be more interested in having him weigh right before their bowl game or something, because I
do think part of it is they probably have those numbers and then they compare it to what they are now, so they can kind of see, are they working in the off season, stuff like that. But
because if you're an NFL athlete and you spend months, like 3 months, where all you're doing is working on, like, I want to get my weight up or weight down for this one event, they could get down maybe 10 pounds lower or 10 pounds higher than their playing weight. And then they'll get drafted and go back to what they go to. But I just think it's a little blown out of proportion. And then another guy, and this guy, the one that's put everybody, who's blown everyone away at the combine this year, is old DK Metcalf. He's a receiver out of Ole Miss. If you haven't heard of him, it's not that surprising. He was okay at Ole Miss, but he never really did a lot. But he got to the combine, and a week before the combine, he posted a picture, and he looks like a beast. I mean, he's got like an 8-pack. He's got muscles coming out of muscles. And he shows up to the combine and is 6'3", 228 pounds, ran a 4.3 in the 40, jumped a 40-inch vertical, and then repped out 225 pounds 27 times. Oh, and he's like a 1.6% body fat. So he's like a freak.
Jeez.
And now all of a sudden they're saying he's going to be the top receiver taken, maybe even go in top 5. And we didn't even hear about him last year. I just don't understand how he's possibly going to go top 5, and we didn't even know who he was a year ago.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of Kevin White at Chicago? I mean, he was a freak athlete, but he's just not an NFL wide receiver. So
that's why I think the combine is overblown. That's why, like what Kevin said, that's why I think that's the case, because I think the scouts that go to it is actually valuable for them to go see what's going on and try to get these measurables. But like, we as fans just make these ridiculous assumptions about how great somebody's going to be, and we'll never give somebody that looks like Tom Brady a chance based on his combine outing. But it is still fun. I mean, like, I saw this one dude who's like 350 pounds and ran like a 4.8 40. Like, just imagine that running at you. Like, that'd be horrifying. So it is kind of fun.
Is that the guy that set the record? Yeah, there was like a D lineman or set the 40-yard dash record.
So, yeah.
And the guy was 350?
I think maybe I might be thinking of something else, but yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what
I mean, that's a big dude that is moving. That's some momentum right there.
Yeah.
God, that's a Mack
I know,
truck.
right? Like, try to stop that. Just give it one chance and you won't do it again. That's a mistake you make twice.
I'm getting the hell out of the way.
I'm having nightmares.
I'm like a red wasp this afternoon.
That's what I was about to say. Man. So you guys, we talked about this last week, or we talked about a scandal last week in the NBA thing with the Tim Donaghy and stuff. And now, guys, I don't know if you've heard about this, but the next big scandal in sports is upon us. You may or may not have heard about this, but the world's number one in the world bridge player has now been banned for testing for a banned substance.
Yes. I saw that. I kind of wanted to get Tammy's thoughts on that because she's a big bridge player, right?
Bridge? You said bridge?
Yes.
Banned substance? What?
So let me tell you. I'll tell you. And then I might need you to explain bridge to me because maybe I don't know what bridge is. But a 49-year-old Norwegian man has been suspended by the panel of the World Bridge Federation after testing positive he tested positive for synthetic testosterone and clomiphene, which is a treatment for clomiphene is a treatment for infertility in women, but it also can raise male testosterone levels, stimulating muscle growth and physical ability. So I don't know.
How does that help your bridge playing?
Yeah, well, we've been going to the wrong bridge games.
That's what I was wondering, if maybe what I thought was bridge was something different, because this man's trying to get jacked up for bridge. And apparently,
it's bridge building is what he's playing.
So, yeah. So I was looking a little further because I'm like, like, what the hell? That doesn't seem like it would help him in bridge. And the bridge policy is based on the World Anti-Doping Agency, which has brought down the likes of Lance Armstrong and cyclists and runners. They follow the same guidelines and the same list of banned substances.
But they're looking at bridge players? What?
And then the article I was reading, a fellow bridge player was asked about the suspension, one of the guys he competes with. And he said, it seems a little odd to us bridge players, but it is his responsibility to avoid substances on the anti-doping list, even if those drugs probably aren't helping him in any way for bridge. But
wow. Well, so that almost smells like a setup then, right? Like, why would he be, like, is he an athlete in some other sense, or is maybe he's a bodybuilder?
Well, it's possible. It's possible he's nearing 50. Maybe he just was trying to boost up his T scores. Maybe he had a low T score and just wanted to boost up his scores and then took the wrong thing.
Increase egg production.
I don't know. It blew. So the way I came across the story, because I just saw it on Twitter, it's like the world's #1 bridge player banned for substance abuse. And I was like,
I saw it.
Wait, what? And so I've naturally, though, I thought maybe he was taking because I've heard of this, like chess players before have taken like Ritalin and Adderall to help their chest out.
That's what I expected when I saw that.
So then when I clicked on it and he was taking testosterone boosters and different women infertility stuff, I was like, what in the world is going on here? So I had to share with you guys.
It turns out he just trains with bones.
That's the thing. You don't want to get sideways with this guy during a game of bridge, or he's going to throw the table.
Right.
Hey, just an FYI. Tammy and her friend Jamie got thrown out of a bridge tournament because they got thrown out because like they beat somebody and they were like high five, like take that bitch, stuff like that. I mean, I think they were kind of being
levels after.
Maybe they're taking testosterone supplements. I mean, I think they were just kind of being funny, but they were like that because you play bridge at the country club and stuff like that. There's a level of decorum, and they're like. How do you like them apples?
They're playing it like you play some dominoes out on the front porch where you're throwing down the bones and domino, Okay.
Oh God.
Well, switching gears now a little bit, we're gonna get it. We talked some Oscars last week and some movie awards, some Green Book and Roma and different things, and now some more news is coming out and I kind of want to get your guys' thoughts on. A group of Academy members led by the director branch governor, Steven Spielberg, are pushing for a rule change. And it's basically, it sounds like they don't want Netflix movies such as like Roma was during this year's award to have a chance at winning different Academy Awards that these movies like Green Book and movies that go to theatrical releases go. I think what I saw, one thing was they want to require a movie to have an exclusive theatrical window for at least 4 weeks to be even eligible for major Oscars. So first, I kind of want to throw over to LJ first. Why is this important to them that you think, and do you think it's important at all? Like, what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I think honestly, what I think is that some studio has asked Steven Spielberg to push this because I don't really feel like this is the type of thing that he would push for. But I don't know him personally, obviously. But yeah, I think the thing is the competition from Netflix, it's not exactly the same style of movie making as making a feature film with the idea of profits in theaters, gets by. And I think maybe that's the argument, is you have to be something that will be profitable with the people. But I think that's I guess what I'm getting at is I think it's absurd. I think it's just the silliest thing I've ever heard, in the sense of movie awards, which I guess there's a lot of silly things to be said there. But, is it not still a movie? This is the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences.
Well, yeah,
right?
That's what this
so,
award's for, the best movie
picture.
Yeah.
And I would want the award to go to, if the only copy of this movie that exists is a videotape in some guy's basement, I'd still want the best movie to win. And the other thing is there already are exclusive things. Roma had to run in LA for 7 days in a row, have 3 shows a day, and have one of those shows each day go between 6 p.m. and 10 p.m. They already have absurd rules where you have to have a theatrical release. So they try to make it to where you can only be considered for an Academy Award if you're a big budget studio, is essentially what those rules are trying to do. And it just is putting up a fake barrier between artists and recognition. And it just... award shows are already stupid to me. Like, I've expressed that opinion a couple of times, but like the idea that the best movie needs to be one that's been in theater for 4 weeks just flabbergasts me. Like, it makes me not want to trust any of these awards ever again.
Well, I saw one thing that part of the argument, I think, was that a movie like Roma doesn't have the same, I don't know if I'm wording this right, the same pressures that a movie coming out in theaters, because when you go to see Green Book in theaters, you're sitting down for 2.5 hours or 2 hours, whatever, to watch one movie, and you're committing to it. So there's like more pressure to it, I guess, in that sense, where Roma is just on Netflix. I just pop it on a Friday night where I didn't have anything to do, and I kind of go into it lighter. And so I think that's part of their...
Which is exactly what I did with Roma, by the way. I didn't like it and I moved on. But,
I haven't seen it. But...
No, I'm sorry, Kevin. Yeah, finish your thought. So I get that to an extent, but I don't understand. Like, I'm kind of with LJ where
the Academy is I'm supposed to, when I look at Best Picture, I'm looking for the best movie out of the selection of movies. I don't care where it came out of. I mean,
it's an arbitrary barrier. I mean, like imagine if 30 years ago they would have said nothing that's filmed digitally will be allowed to win an award. Only 70 millimeter film will be allowed to win the award.
Good point.
It's the same sort of concept. Like it's just a barrier just to make sure that the competition stays within the big studios.
So that's what I thought.
And
I'm with you, LJ, and I'm glad you brought this up because I felt there's an agenda. There's always an agenda, and I'm wondering if this isn't the big studios just, we don't like because Netflix is already big, and now they're poaching on the big studios ground where they're saying we're going to win awards too. And I think I think there's money behind it where someone's saying Steven Spielberg, this is where we need, because it just doesn't seem like something the hill he would die on to me. And a lot of people are going to hate him for coming out with this. So there's something behind it. I think. Yeah. I'm with you, LJ. I just don't understand it. I don't get what the point of that would be.
Well, me too. I want to say I would defer to LJ. My opinion is probably going to be what LJ's is on this because I just feel like you know a little more about this subject than certainly I do. But what you said what really hit me. It's the Academy Awards of Motion Pictures. Well,
right.
Okay, if you want to rename it to be the Academy Awards of Theater Released Motion Pictures, then okay, we can talk about that. But it's the best movie, so.
Yeah, and you can
Netflix is changing the game.
Name. Yeah, I think if you say like
name.
if you have best film streaming and non-streaming awards or something, then I could still get behind. I would think it's dumb, but I'd get behind it more than the idea of you just can't even compete.
Yeah.
The world's changing. I mean, God, look how many podcasts there are out there now. I mean, that wasn't even a thing, 5 years ago, maybe less. Digital content and how we receive and digest it is completely different than when I grew up, than it was different when y'all were in the house with me. I mean, it's
completely
changing.
Well, imagine if the Grammys had an award and to win Best Album, you had to have sold 80,000 units at a record store. Like, that's just not the way the world works. It just doesn't happen.
Right. Totally agree.
Speaking of Netflix, and we mentioned them, and I've kind of here recently, the past few days or past week or two, I've been I didn't realize this, but Netflix has a million different stand-up things. Like every single comedian out there has a Netflix special, I think. If you don't, then I guess you're just not, like, I feel like you're not a comedian if you don't have a Netflix special nowadays. So with that being said, I've been watching some different stand-ups and I kind of went back and watched some old ones because I watched a newer Dave Chappelle, and then I went back and watched like a Richard Pryor, and I've been just been watching a few different ones. And something I thought about while watching it was, it seems like every single one of the more recent ones, it starts out with some form of a line where the guy or girl says, well, I really have to watch what I say here, or I'll get in trouble. And they're always, and I think a lot of that goes to, the stuff resurfacing about Kevin Hart, where he had some jokes that was talking about homophobic things and stuff like that. So a lot of that's going that direction. But I kind of also was thinking, some of the funniest things when I'm watching a comedian do stand up is when they start talking about a subject or get onto a skit that really I've probably thought it, but I don't feel comfortable saying it out loud or talking about it with people at work or something, because it's just, it's not a politically correct or not a right conversation, And that sometimes is the funniest thing when Louis C.K.'s talking about that in his stand-up or something. So if we're taking that out of stand-up, I'm finding a long way to get around to it, but I think comedy slowly maybe going away because we're so torn on political correctness. And is that good or bad that we're worried about it, Dad? Okay,
it's bad. I mean, political correctness is overwhelming, and I think it almost, I'm going to just say this, I think it sucks a little bit. I'm so tired of everybody being politically correct. The best humor to me is when a person finds humor that is on the boundary of tastefulness, but then they make it with a happy ending. It has a happy ending. Robert Kraft could maybe relate to that. Anyway, but that's what humor is. So you take something that's a little uncomfortable. I did that accidentally, and then you find a funny way to end it. I mean, come on, that's what it is. I was going to say, I am a white man of middle-aged descent, or middle age, and I'm heterosexual. So,
middle-aged descent.
I mean, that was a wrong word. That was
from a long line of middle-aged people.
But I mean, so maybe I'm hard to be offended, but that's what political correctness is, when you offend one's sensitivities. And maybe I'm less sensitive, but maybe I'm less sensitive because I'm a white heterosexual male. I mean, I get the fact that if you were more of a repressed genre of society, maybe you're more easily offended. And I want to be considerate of those people. But if you can get to that edge of tastefulness and then end it with a happy ending, then I think that's what humor is. And I don't want to see that go away. I just don't.
Well,
so I'm worried about what you're bringing up, Kevin. And I hope like hell that's not what it is. And I think it won't be. You like gritty, edgy humor, I think. And one other thing, Andrew Dice Clay, if you remember some of his humor, I didn't particularly like it. It seemed very rude and demeaning to women, in my opinion. Now that I guess a homosexual or a minority might feel like it's demeaning in their perspective. So, it's fair that perspectives are different, but I personally didn't like Dice Clay that much because I found his stuff just it was across the line to me. Yeah. But I just wish we would all be more tolerant. If it ends happily, it's funny. If it makes you laugh, it's funny. That's it. Does it make you laugh? Well, then it's funny.
I have a thought. I want to get LJ. What do you think?
Well, okay, so one thing I want to say about it is is comedy dying? I think, of course not. I think one of the things, I learned this from Chuck Zach in AP US History. Shout out to maybe the best teacher I've ever had. But he taught us that the world is a pendulum and our views are pendulums. And what happens is we'll swing all the way to the left on one thing. And so in this, it's political correctness. And what always happens is we'll swing right back the other way. Yeah. And it'll just keep happening until, eventually the pendulum will probably die down somewhere in the middle where pretty much everybody's happy. And that's why people like Andrew Dice Clay or Carlos Mencia got famous, is because they were offensive in a time when it was probably just the edge of it's not okay. And so they pushed those boundaries, and that's why, but I think the thing that I want to throw out there is that, a bad comedian is one that relies on offending you to be funny. If you can't make somebody laugh without offending somebody, I mean, people are going to get offended. Jokes are offensive, but if you're punching down at somebody, if your joke is, you're gay and that's the whole joke, then that's really not a good joke. That's just picking on somebody. That's just a schoolyard joke. If you're getting paid millions of dollars to sell a stadium out, then I would hope that your jokes are better than just picking on somebody on a school playground. And so I think that a lot of people say that because, it starts out the air of, hey, I'm a little bit edgy. And so the audience is like, okay, let's see what happens here. And it kind of gets people a little bit excited. I think that comedians aren't probably really that worried about it. And if they are, they're probably not good comedians.
It's a good statement. And
I'm not to say that people that make tasteless jokes are bad. It's just, I'm not I'm all about having my buddies make awful jokes. I think that's fun. But then if you're selling out a stadium, you got to be better than my buddies. That's just fact of my opinion, which is not a real sentence. I don't know. I think when you punch down at people, then that's a problem. When the punchline is that because she's a woman, ha 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 ha, then you're the worst. That's not comedy. That's just being an ass.
Well, and that's kind of, I thought about this too, because I thought about the Kevin Hart thing and some of the jokes that he was getting killed for in retrospect. And when he made those jokes, I found them hilarious. And I was thinking along the lines of maybe Dad would, where I was like, oh, just quit being so offended by everything. It's just he's being funny. But that's me coming as a straight white man who there's not as much. I can say, people can make fun of me. I don't care if they call me a cracker. That's the normal white response. And I think that's a little bit skewed because for someone who maybe is a homosexual, they've been belittled and beat down their whole life. So just that added joke. I mean, I can understand why it maybe bothers people differently. There's a reason things don't bother me as much, is because not as many people attack the straight white guy as they do the minority when it's
there's a lot less that can offend you. What's the worst word for you is a cracker, right? That's a poor.
So I can't have the same viewpoint as other people. So I get that. I do want to make sure that's
Well, and that's what I was trying to say. Exactly.
And it also perpetuates the fact that this is okay. I'm probably going to bleep this word out, but there was a word on Louis C.K. stand-up he had a joke about Phoenicians are from Phoenix, and then something about shut up fat, or something like that. And it was like the punchline was that word's not a bad word. It's not about being gay, it's whatever. And so, but to me, that meant that showed me that word's okay. And then I started meeting people in my life. I actually, started getting a little older and started being around people that were different than me, and started meeting gay people that got the shit beat out of them when they were in middle school and high school and got called that word. And so now that word brings back these memories of that awful, awful day, or that awful, awful year or whatever. And so just because Louis C.K. said it and I laughed because he crafted a good joke around it, I then thought that word's just okay to use anytime. And so I think you learn through comedy what's okay and what's not okay. And sometimes using offensive humor for the sake of offense will teach people to think that way. Does that make sense? I feel like I'm rambling, but
I think you are a little bit. But
I can say that I want to say good comedy, a really good comedian, if he doesn't make you he or she make you a little uncomfortable at some part, then they're probably not doing a good job. You know,
agreed.
I don't mind being a little uncomfortable, but just bring it to a point. Don't use, it's like there were so many comedians that would be funny by using profanity gratuitously. If profanity fits in the joke and makes it funny, by all means, I don't mind an F-bomb. I just don't mind it. But if you're F-bomb, 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 ha, 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 that's not funny.
Agreed.
So I think, I mean, if that's kind of where you were going, I mean, I don't mind you using that, the F word now. Can we say that? Or the N word? I'm not trying to hurt anybody's feelings by that. But if it's funny in the sense of a joke,
so
I'm okay
maybe
with
where
it.
We're getting to.
Well, and I agree with on what you're saying, just real quick. I agree with, I think all good art should make everybody in the room uncomfortable at some point. Like, if it doesn't make you uncomfortable, it can't affect you. Like, I've never seen a show that just made me happy the whole time, and then I came away with a changed perspective, or I came away thinking about something new. Like, I just ended up killing time if it's just made me happy the whole time. So yeah, I think uncomfort is a hallmark of all good art, but there is still like I think
maybe you've kind of answered the question that I asked at originally. Both of you guys have, and I think it's comedy isn't dying. The shitty comedians who rely on the profanity or rely on, punching down like that, those
meanness or
those comedians are going to go away. And that's fine. That's okay. Like I threw on one of Dave Chappelle's more recent ones, and that dude is just freaking funny. Like, he's just a good comedian, and the good ones don't rely on, like, I'm sure he was cussing in his thing, but I'm sure you could take out every cuss word and the jokes are still funny. He's not relying on that. He's not relying on the black or white or homosexual. He just is throwing jokes out there, and they're good and they're funny. So I think bad comedy is dying because you can't just keep offending people all the time, and you're going to turn people off of you. But the good comedians are going to last. It's not going anywhere. I was wondering that because I just thought about it, and I noticed I heard every single comedian say something to the lines of, I don't want to say something that'll get me in trouble here. So, and I'm interested to see where it goes.
But if that's not a bit for the audience, then they wouldn't say it. They just wouldn't say anything, and they would just hope that nobody would try to get them in trouble. Like, it's almost like they're put a big flag on their head saying, hey, try to catch me when they say something like that. It's just all a part of the bit to me. That's what I believe about it, at least.
Hey, while we're talking about comedians, can I say this real quick? That one of my favorite comedians seems to be blowing up right now, and he's been one of my favorites for a long time. John Mulaney. Y'all know who I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's great.
John Mulaney.
Too, yeah.
He's on fire. He was on Saturday Night Live. He was on like either Jimmy Kimmel or Jimmy Fallon the other night. He is a hilarious guy, and he's a different kind of comedian. He's kind of a nerdy kind of,
I think
comedian,
I just listened to like the first 20 minutes or was watching the first 20 minutes of his Netflix special. Yeah, I was.
He's great. He's funny. He's unique. He's dorky, and then like not.
Find this bit. We've got to find it. Put on the website where he does. Somebody played "What's Up, Pussycat." Tom Jones.
That's
song.
my first time.
That was my first
time I
one.
heard of him.
And shout out to Lauren Lee Hubbard, who turned me on to that. She said, you got to check this guy out. And but I'm so glad he's blowing up. He is so funny.
That happened at the Salt and Pepper Diner, which is
exactly.
something I see on my drive periodically, and every time I do, it's here in Chicago.
Is he a Chicago guy?
He's spent a lot of time here. I'm not sure if he's from here, but he spent a lot of time here. And so every time I drive by there, I can't help but burst into "What's new, pussycat?"
It is so funny.
All right, well, let's try to put a bow on this episode and get to how we always wrap it up. Pops, what have you been listening to lately?
I hope I'm not starting to repeat stuff, but I'm sorry. I just came back. This is a guy LJ turned me on to years ago. And so John Butler Trio. I just started listening to John Butler Trio again. I dig his music. It is guitar driven, melodic, a little funky, edgy. He's just effing good, man. John Butler Trio is really good. And I can't tell you anything specific. I'll find some songs and put on there, but I just really dig his sound a lot. Yeah. That's what I've been listening to.
He's the kind of guy you could imagine would be like, if you could think of artists to listen to around a campfire, he's like top 10.
Yeah.
He might not be a top 10 artist of all time, but campfire artist, I wouldn't know. There's almost no one I'd want more. Like, it's ridiculous.
He is so good. And LJ, more power. You turned me on to. Where did you hear about him? Is
Jake McGee, actually. Yeah, Jake McGee. So Cody McGee probably knew about him before me, too.
All right. The McGee boys.
Yeah, that's the McGee family got me hooked on that. So.
All right. John Butler Trio. That's mine, Kevin.
LJ, what about you? What you been listening to?
I've been listening to Khalid.
Okay.
I was just Location was the first song I listened to when I got some really good headphones, and that was the first song that made me like just really pumped about good headphones because it's just really neatly produced for a 16-year-old in his basement. So I've been listening to some of his stuff again, and because he's come out with new stuff since I've really listened to him last, and it's all really good. It's not gonna blow anybody away, I don't think, but he's great. He's not like all time.
Yeah,
he's not campfire artist.
He's a good listen. He's definitely a good listen. I like some Khalid.
Yeah. He's chill too. He's really laid back.
So what I've been listening to lately, and it's something that just an album that came out just here recently, and I've been listening to some old Titty Boy 2 Chainz. He dropped a new album. I saw he dropped. It was funny because he dropped an album, and it got thrown into the NBA world a little bit because there was a video rolling around that LeBron put out there and there's like timestamps on it, and it was 2 Chainz and LeBron were like listening back to his song, and like at one point LeBron was like, "Here's what you need to know." I don't know how much LeBron really helped him, but it made it look like him and LeBron were working on the album together. But what was great about it is you remember when we talked about LeBron missing that game due to load management?
Yeah.
Well, that was apparently I don't know the dates exactly right, but that was like a February 3rd Sunday game against the Warriors, and literally, they put the timestamp on this thing he was doing with 2 Chainz, and it said February 2nd, 11:43 p.m. So it was the night before that game at midnight. He was drinking wine with 2 Chainz, and the next day he missed a game due to load management.
For load management.
So LeBron, so my man LeBron, I like to call. I try to give an argument on GOAT arguments, and now it looks like he might not make the playoffs with the Lakers, and he's out. It's a bad look for him because he's out calling his teammates saying you got to be focused on basketball when he's missing games.
When he's out with 2 Chainz.
He's out with Titty Boy getting drunk on some wine, listening to his rap album at midnight, and then he's also coming out with Space Jam in the offseason and also doing his shop show with Anthony Davis and Antonio Brown. I mean, there's so many things LeBron's got going on, and then he's going to, at the press conference, call out guys and say, you need to be focused on basketball. It's kind of like, I don't know if that's where you really want to go here, LeBron. So, all that said, 2 Chainz' his new album, is pretty dang good. I don't know if LeBron had anything to do with it or not, but it was pretty good. I don't think he had much to do with it.
What's the title of it? I love 2 Chainz album titles, and I don't know this one yet.
Rap or Go to the League.
Rap or Go to the League?
Rap or Go to the League. And so I think that's why
I'm not
maybe
sure that I follow that one, but
well, he has a song on there called NCAA, and it sounds it's a lot about like it kind of talks. It doesn't. It's interesting. I bet he recorded it before the Zion Williamson stuff, but it was like a lot about they making money off my jerseys, and he talks about Manziel had the highest selling jersey ever, but he didn't make a dime off of it. He can't make a dime off his own name. And then there's the song Mama I Hit a Lick, and it's got Kendrick Lamar on it, and boy, Kendrick comes in there with it's just a pretty good album if you like 2 Chainz. 2 Chainz has a little bit of a different style, so it might not be everybody's guy, but it was pretty good. I was waiting to see I haven't seen LeBron actually feature on it anywhere. That's what everyone was wondering, if LeBron was going to have a feature. He doesn't seem to be featured anywhere, but
yeah. Well, one of my favorite album titles is Pretty Girls Love Trap Music.
Yeah, that was his 2017 one. Yeah. What's on my list though? So we talked about The Masked Singer, and I was sitting there Googling. I was like, man, T-Pain should definitely come out with a singing album where he's not autotuned. Well, did you know T-Pain has a 2019 album that I believe, I haven't got to listen to it yet, but I believe it's a lot more of him singing and not autotune.
Now, okay, so I've listened to about half of it.
Okay.
It came out the day before the finale of Masked Singer, right? So that seems like the right opportunity. This is actually something I kind of wanted to talk about and I just forgot about. But I've listened to about half of it, and it is all the exact same T-Pain stuff you would expect it to be. And it's such a disappointment to me. I mean, there might be the second half of the album might just, be the exact opposite. But the thing about it is, like, I feel like now is the time if you want to step up and be the new soulful R&B singer. Today is the day. I mean, like, Chris Brown is dealing with all the Chris Brown things that he's always going to have to deal with. R. Kelly just got locked up in jail and then put out on bail. The Weeknd hadn't put out an album in a while. Frank Ocean hadn't put out an album in a while. And so T-Pain could, after showing off to the entire world that he can sing like an angel, come take that crown. And then he put out another T-Pain album. And
the throne is for the taking right now. Like we need someone to fill that void. And that really kind of, I say that bums me out. I love old T-Pain. Like, you throw on Buy You a Drink. That's like my childhood song.
It's a
throw
great
on Bartender.
song. Yeah.
I'm in love with the stripper. I'm with all of them.
Yeah.
But
I'm Sprung, by the way, did you know that's about the woman he's currently married to?
Really? No, I did not know that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
But when I heard him on Masked Singer, and I was like scrolling around, looking him up on Twitter, and I saw someone say, like, someone who was verified, so I wanted to see his replies because they get a bunch of replies, and it was like, man, why doesn't T-Pain come out with an album of him singing? And then someone replied to it, was like, actually, go check out One Up. It just came out tonight. And I was like, oh, so this must be that album. I'm like you, LJ. I thought this has to be that album. And then I'm a little bummed to know that it's not. Even though...
Well, and let's see. The first half, and it's good. It's My Dog's Birthday is a pretty cool song. There's some fun stuff on it, but definitely maybe the second half is exactly what we want it to be. And maybe he takes that throne and just holds on to it, doesn't let it go. We'll see. But
I hope so. I like some T-Pain. Every time I've heard him talk, sing, he seems like a cool cat. So I hope we get more T-Pain in our life.
Agreed. Yeah.
All right. I think that'll probably wrap us up for another week of the JPP pod. Do you guys have anything else before we get out of here? Hopefully a warm front comes through here and we get out of this.
It'll be next weekend, I hope. But
it's damn near spring.
Sunscreen.
Yeah, it's damn near spring break, and I can't go outside without 3 jackets on. So I'm sick of all this ice.
You guys are talking about missing the sun. I'm talking about missing the rain. I want the rain to come back. It hadn't been warm enough to actually be liquid as it's coming from the sky in probably 3 months or something.
See,
dude, you live in Chicago. You live in Chicago. You know this is the way it is. This is the way it is.
I'm just saying. I don't even strive for the sun anymore. That's too far of a goal. I just want rain.
Well, he's a man that doesn't ask for much, people. He just wants a little bit of rain. All right, well, that'll do it for another episode. By the way, check us out on Apple Podcast or Spotify. Give us a rate and review or anywhere that you get your podcasts. And you can find us on our website.
Alexa, subscribe to Just Press Play.
Then unsubscribe and resubscribe. And you can also find our show notes over at our website. It's at jpppod.com. And you can also find us on Twitter and Facebook. So hit us up. I think that'll do it for another week. Peace out.
Peace.
Noticed, by the way, listening to the last episode when I was trying to understand John's question while I was saying it out loud, and you can't tell whether I'm full of shit or not, but you can tell whether I think I know what I'm talking because I just go like into just straight ums over and over and over again when I'm like not sure. My confidence comes through, and I think I know.
You can tell when LJ's just spewing shit and when he actually thinks he knows what he's saying.
Right. You can't tell if it's true or not, but you can tell that I think it.
I'm gonna go ahead and open these notes
up as a PDF just to be safe, because sometimes.
What is that we're looking at? Is that your hand or like a close-up of your butt cheeks? Oh, it's your hand. Okay.
A close-up of my butt.